Hi, Christine. Oh, I think you're on mute. Oh, there we go.
How's that?
That's better. There
Okay,
you go.
there we go. Yeah. Home
Great.
technology, school technology,
Yeah.
and all the time. How are you?
Doing good. Doing good. Yeah. Yeah, and I totally understand. For some reason, I think it just always mutes my Zoom just mutes everyone when they enter. I don't know. I thought I changed the setting, but it just keeps happening. So I
Oh,
just have
good.
to warn people now. Yeah. But it's great to meet you. And thanks for joining me
Well,
on the call this morning. I'm Cara. I'm a researcher at National Geographic Learning. We're going to talk today a little bit about assignments and how you work with assignments and create them and things like that. It's just going to be an open conversation, just to get a better understanding of things, so that as we develop and work, consider the way that we do assignments at National Geographic Learning, we make sure we align with teachers and their needs. But before we jump into Zoom, you might have noticed this is being, or into the conversation, this Zoom is being live streamed. It's going to an unlisted YouTube link just so my teammates can take notes and stuff without being distracting. And if you don't mind, would you mind giving me consent to record this video just so I can, just in case I miss anything you say or forget anything?
yes, you have consent.
Okay, fantastic. Great. All right. Cool. All right. So the first couple of questions are I just want to make sure I understand where you're coming from. So can you just confirm your grades and the subjects that you teach?
Yeah, so I have a seventh grade computer tech class,
Okay.
meaning I teach them not technology, engineering, that type of thing. I teach them how to use the devices that we have and how to use them more as a
Okay.
learning tool than just, as technology, what have you, but how to enhance their learning with it. And then I have 9 through 12 business classes.
Okay. Great. Okay, cool. And do you use any sort of like LMS or learning management system like Google Classroom or Schoology or Canvas or something like that?
Yep. So I use Google Classroom. Before the pandemic hit, we had switched to the Google platform, and I've been
Okay.
pretty proactive. Not that I like change any more than anyone else, but I've always been very proactive. So when my kids had to go remote, they were all set because they had used Google Classroom. They knew how I posted assignments. They knew how everything worked. So they were very familiar with that. So, but that is what I use. So.
Okay, cool. And do you use any sort of digital curriculum or something from a publisher at all?
Not much anymore. This coming year will probably be the first year that, again, being the business department, we're a little low on the totem pole to get, new materials. So I do have some new materials coming this year. And there will probably be a digital connect to it, but I haven't had that in the past. So,
okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right. Great. So the first question I have about assignments is just, can you tell me a little bit about how you schedule them, and if you ever schedule them like digitally, online, or just in person? Just tell me more about that.
Yep. No, they are all digital, and
Okay.
they were digital again pre-pandemic. So usually what I'll do is I'll have them, what am I trying to say? Saved as a draft, and then I'll go over the assignment, prep it up, and then I will launch it to them. And typically I don't lecture for 42 minutes, the full class period. Usually we discuss, we go over stuff, and then they have time to work because I want to work with them in class. So typically that's what I'll do is I'll have the assignment ready to go as a draft, and then we'll launch it. I'll go over the directions. Everything will be in there. And typically I probably don't see it again until like the end of the week. Usually we have some time to play catch up. And that's usually where I'll pull up, hey, these are the things that are due. So.
Okay, interesting. So you typically launch assignments like in the classroom, like as your students are sort of after you talk through how to do it or what you're doing.
Yep.
Okay.
I do have a college class, and a lot of their assignments I post ahead of time. So, I'll say, okay, this is gonna go, you'll see them, but they know what they're doing pretty much every chapter. So when they get to class, we're discussing or they're presenting. So that's about the only class that I don't necessarily discuss first because it's set up in the beginning.
Gotcha. Okay. And so how many assignments do you usually have up at any given time for your class?
Usually the classes usually they have one a day,
Okay.
probably 3 to 5 a week.
Mhm.
And I also use, it's not an assignment, but I'll also do, I know the education term is bell ringer. I have a question every day
Yeah.
that we do. It's not necessarily to me a bell ringer. It's more right now, getting them talking after they've been home or remote or, coming to school half days and then,
Mhm.
2 other days. It's more to just get conversations going. So those are in there as well. They show up as assignments, but they're just kind of whether they answered them and how they answered them. So not
Okay.
necessarily curriculum hooked, but
Yeah. Yeah. No, that makes total sense. Yeah. And then in terms of creating and launching your assignments, is there any challenges you've encountered in the past with that at all? So
yeah, what I've kind of my biggest concern that I've seen for years, is my lesson plan book is in Google Sheets. It was
okay.
in Google Excel before that. I have 6 different classes that I teach.
Mhm.
So as opposed to a teacher that teaches 6 sections of social studies, I have six different things. So I have a
Oh,
spreadsheet set up that has every week and it's got the 5 days on one sheet and it's got every period what we're going to do. And I haven't had much challenge sending the assignments out, but I haven't had a place to hook together where they could pull my assignments and I could be like, oh, this is what we're doing. This is what we have, because they're 2 separate areas. So there's really nothing that kind of marries them together.
okay. So the Google Sheets then that's the students actually have access to that and they can see. Oh no, they can't.
It's just for my, okay, this is what I
Oh,
need to
okay.
do today to kind
Hmm.
of stay on track. So
Okay.
yeah,
Hmm. And
know
you
that
would
I need to get from, chapter 1 to 20 by the end of the year.
mhm.
This is how we're going to get there. So
And you'd like to be able to see that like in the like Google Classroom or something? Like, is that what you're sort of
yeah,
describing here? Okay.
some sort of connect. So wherever I submit assignments right now, it is Google Classroom, like kind of marry that all together so that I know, okay, nothing shows me in 3 weeks I should be on chapter 14.
Mhm.
And that week that we're going to be on chapter 14 is only a 4-day week. So
Mhm.
I got to condense everything down. There's nothing that
Mhm.
kind of breaks it down that way. So
Okay. I see. Okay. And then in terms of, so it sounds like, and this might just be or what you said before, but so in terms of how far ahead you sign things, it's usually just that day of, right? There's never a
right.
case where you would, okay, great.
Yeah, again, I have one college class that I teach. So it's our local community college, but I teach it at the high school level. Their
Mhm.
stuff I usually post like on Sunday night so they know what they have to do for the week. But that's
Mhm.
the only class I typically do that.
Okay, cool. And then in terms of the like, is there any questions that like you get commonly asked by students? Like, what are the questions that you get all the time about assignments from your students?
Well, when is it due? No, they get that, but and again, Google, but that's it. Google like tells them what's due and when, but I don't think and again, I'm one of the ones that teach it, but I don't feel like um, if there was something that like popped up to them right away,
Mhm.
that showed them, okay, this is what's due today, or this is what's in your week plan. And then it took them to other stuff, maybe something like that. Again, whether it's Google Classroom or something else.
Mhm.
I know a lot of schools and teachers use like, and this drives me nuts because it's duplication of technology, but they'll use like interactive Google Docs or slides pages where
Mhm.
everything is in there. And I'm like, there should be some other connect. We shouldn't have to reinvent the wheel to use what's already in there. As far as the students' questions, um, no, they're pretty familiar with our the way we use things.
Okay.
So there's typically not sometimes they're not sure how to hand things in, which is kind of silly, whether they share it with us or whether they turn it in. But
Okay.
usually they've known it by now enough that they're pretty familiar with that. So
And when you say share it with us or turn it in, can you, I'm not, is it, what's the difference between those again?
so if they can email, they can take their document if it's their assignment and they
Mhm.
can share it via email with us.
Okay.
So they could share it that way,
Uh-huh.
or there's a turn in button in Google Classroom where they can actually physically
Uh,
turn that in. So,
yeah.
yep.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, which I think
Okay.
is familiar in the one program that I did see with some of the publishers. It's kind of the same thing. You can do that. My daughter, I couldn't tell you the platform, but she takes some college classes, and that's kind of the same thing. I should actually expand on that. She's noticed some things where the due date has been the due date in the system, but it's been different. Like it hasn't been updated in the system for whatever reason. So like, she's like, oh, it's due Friday. And then the professor's like, no, it's not due till next Wednesday, but it doesn't
Mhm.
get changed in the system. So I don't know how user friendly that is on the other side, but.
Okay. And so then actually going back a little bit to, your students and talking about, how they can see the due date, is there other sorts of, so what is the information you would think is the most important things a student should be able to see on their assignment?
Yeah, it should be the due date, and maybe if there's other parts
Hmm.
of that, number
Hmm.
one. And then number two, which I found in other, whether it was going way back to Blackboard or Google, being able to group it by quarters or by semesters. Because
Okay.
sometimes we can only accept things by a certain date.
Hmm.
And many of the platforms, it's the whole year, right? It's not the
Hmm.
quarter. So they can turn in stuff from first quarter, even though we're on fourth quarter. And sometimes the assumption is that we're going back to first quarter, which never happens, right?
Hmm.
So yeah, that could be a concern.
Okay. Yeah. And then for you, what do you find most important to have like access or be able to see on the assignment while it's up?
Again, what the assignment is, when it's due,
Hmm.
including the quarter, if
Hmm.
there's any specific notes or references,
Okay.
right? So like if it has to do with a chapter or certain pages, or, FYI, this is how I want you to do it.
Hmm.
If you have to use sources, or if you have to use different things that maybe isn't the same for every assignment.
Hmm. Okay. And how is there ever a do you typically give your assignments to students to the whole class, or is there ever a case where you assign like it only to specific students? Does that make sense?
Right. Yes. Yep. So
Okay.
sometimes I have a couple of classes where, for example, I have a class that's mostly seniors. It's about like college decisions, or if you're going to go in the military or just go get a job. So sometimes I'll be like, okay, if you're college track, this is your assignment. If
Hmm.
you are jumping right into the job world, this is your assignment. And they're both kind of, the end goal is for them to learn, XYZ, but sometimes I do split those off.
Okay. So that's a specific track in like that your class or your school has students on?
Just in the class. So I have a
Okay.
class, and we work on goals. We work on kind of what's your next step after graduation.
Hmm.
And that it also might change. So I might have a student that started out, they were just going to go in the military and they were good with that. By the time that they were done, they were like, you know what, I'm going to do a 18-month tech program.
Hmm.
So the assignment might be a little bit different, catered to where they are at that moment.
Okay. Okay, cool. So then you're actually creating like specific assignments based on like what they're looking to do, like
Yes.
by student. Okay,
Yeah.
that's really
Yeah.
cool.
Sometimes I do that.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yep.
yeah. Okay. Um, is that usually like how many students would that usually be? Is that usually just one, or would it be like a small group or a subset of
It
students?
probably three quarters to a
Okay.
quarter. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Great.
Yeah. Or sometimes I'll say, okay, here's your option. You can do option A or B, and then they
Mhm.
can decide what they want to do. And usually it's kind of split. So
Okay.
yeah.
And do you ever have to assign, or do you ever have students that need accommodations? And if so, how you address that or manage that?
Right. So typically the accommodations that I would have would be if kids are taking a test.
Mm.
So they would have to either have their test read to them, they'd have to have a separate location,
Mhm.
that type of thing. Since I'm thinking, like, since I'm not in math realm, so to speak,
Mm.
most of the accommodations for homework don't apply.
Okay.
So I've never
Okay.
had that case. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. That makes sense. Um, oh, all right. Let me just check my notes
Yeah.
here. And do you reuse assignments from year to year? Like, do you ever like the same
Yep.
things? Yeah, I see a
Pull them
nod.
forward and then make a copy
Great.
of them and then make appropriate changes or updates to them and then push them forward. Yep. Mhm.
Has that process, sort of that reusing process, about how much time does that take you, or like, does it, or like, I guess, does it cause any challenges or anything like that?
Not too much because I
Okay.
guess I've done it for so long that, I can say, okay, I think we have time to do this. This kind of fits into this. So I'll pull it forward and figure out where we're at, and then I can kind of revise it. So usually it doesn't take too long to do that.
Mhm.
But I definitely do that. So some
Um,
consistently and some, just I pull out because it's relevant.
mhm. Yeah. So the next question I have is a little abstract, so just bear with me. I'm
Yeah.
going to ask you to actually complete a sentence. So for the first one, is creating and scheduling assignments currently feels like what to you?
Second nature.
Second nature?
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, I'm just so used to it now that Zoom bang it goes. That's I have a sticky note in my planning book that says I have a slideshow each week of what's going on for that day, for every day of the week, and like a little kind of pick me up thing. And then I have a question of the day, and then I have, schedule the week out. So it's
Mhm.
pretty much second nature at this point. So
Okay. And then, so I guess, so this might be self-explanatory, but so the second question is actually, I want creating and scheduling assignments to feel like. So is there anything you would like them to feel like?
yeah. I I guess, and this is not because you're with publisher. I like it to be more connected to the publishers because that if
Hmm.
there was a connect there, that would make it even more seamless.
Hmm.
Um, because I have my own stuff. I'm always going to take what comes with the textbook and
Hmm.
enhance it, right? But if there could be a better connect with that, that would be great. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Can you tell me like an example of a better connect that would be just great to see?
So the basic would be, because again, I have 9 through 12 in a ninth grade class, the terms and questions that go with something like automatically, boom, here they
Mm.
are, here's your terms, you have to define them, you have to answer the
Yeah.
questions, to all the way being, as I get to high schoolers, maybe expanding on like that and not having those just dump in, but maybe some bigger discussion questions like my high schoolers would get those is,
Hmm.
in 12th grade, as opposed to giving the stuff actually to my ninth graders.
Hmm.
So kind of being more seamless and being able to pick and choose those things would be good.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Definitely.
Yeah.
Um, cool. And then let's see. Is there any, do you ever have to have standards? As like, how do you deal with standards in terms of assignments, or do you have to have them tied to assignments, or how does that
So,
usually work?
right. Yeah. So we're kind of unique in the respect that we have Atlas curriculum mapping.
Mhm.
Where we're unique is we have CTE business endorsement for New York State.
Mhm.
So every 5 years, we have to go in and we have to make sure that all our curriculum is aligned where it should.
Mhm.
So, I couldn't tell you on a Tuesday that this chapter went to this standard, but if I wanted to go in my curriculum map, I could say, okay, this is the chapter, this is what standards they align to. So that would be helpful because we kind of do that on our own now. But right now, there's no connect for me as far as from my lesson directly to the standards.
Okay. Okay. That makes sense. Because I've definitely heard like different things. I've definitely heard like how standards are for different teachers
Yes.
is
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
Uh,
And again, teaching so many things, like it's
mhm.
not like I'm teaching English 8 and I know that I have to tie this standard that we're doing on this, whatever, all day, every day to it. There's a lot more multitasking that goes on. So yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Um, okay. Well, I guess I think we went through questions pretty quickly. So let me just make sure I'm covering everything.
Yeah.
Let's see. Okay. Um, is there any, and this wouldn't be necessarily for posting the assignments to your students, uh, since I know you do that day of, but how do you organize assignments for yourself? Like, how do you like to organize your, because it sounds like you have like a Google sheet or something like that. So curious to know more about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I have, and it just goes by chapter. I do two things. I have a Google sheet for each week that breaks down each day for each class what I'm going to do. And then I have a 40-week Google Sheet calendar that just says, okay, this week we have to do this week we have to do that. And then I kind of like, I did it right. I did it last week. We have 10 weeks of school left. I went through and I was like, okay, this is what we, this class we can be flexible with. I can only get to chapter 14. That's fine. This is what we're going to do. And then the other chapters or the other classes I can break down. So I use those two things and I'll kind of use it year to year, knowing, some years you go faster, some years you go slower. But again, I have a 40-week calendar and then I have a daily, weekly, so to speak, Google Sheet that I just made myself. So, yeah.
Okay. And so then when you're looking at the, like, how do you review like past assignments, like assignments that already went out to students? Like how does that work?
So that's it. Basically, well, two things. I'll say pre-Google Classroom, I just use my folders that I have in the cloud folders, and they're by chapter. And I kind of look, okay, we're going to start chapter 11. I'll take for accounting, for example, we'll do a study guide, we'll do application problems, but there's another math connect that I might pull in for that. And then I know what's in that chapter that I need to get done. And then I can look also in Google Classroom, everything is in there. So I can look to see what we did last time. And then, for example, there was a couple of assignments in a chapter. I was like, you know what, that's not really as relevant as it was last year. So I won't do that, but I'm going to try this and do something different. So it'll show me everything that we did previously.
Okay, cool. And is there any times where you actually changed assignments in the midstream? Like, is there any? Okay. Yeah. Why don't you tell me a little?
Yeah. No, sometimes you get an assignment and you put all your time into it and you're like, oh, this is going to be great. And then you're like, that was just awful. So then you could just go back and you're like, okay, do I need to even revisit this? Or should I just come up with something new? And sometimes you revisit it and sometimes you just find something else and you move on. But yeah, definitely. Yeah, there are definitely revisions that happen. So, and we've had to be much more obviously fluid in the last few years. So,
and so the types of revisions you do, is that usually like, it sounds like it's actually in the type of assignment or like the way, like what are.
So it could be something as simple as I've changed the directions or the parameters. Okay. For example, we did marketing last week and they had to do 4 types of promotions. And I was like, well, you still need to do 4, but you're only going to talk to the class about 1 because we were getting short on time. So I went in and I revised that. There's other ones where we've just kind of revised the whole thing. Okay, this doesn't need to be 7 paragraphs. This needs to be a 2-paragraph thing or vice versa. So yeah.
Okay. Great. All right. Well, I think we actually have gone through all the questions. So we just finished a little bit early. So, but would love to hear if there's any final thoughts you have or suggestions or anything that we didn't cover that you thought we were going to cover and we didn't actually end up doing.
No, I think you kind of hit it. Again, the big thing that I've had for years is having a way for me to have my lesson book, so to speak, connect with all my assignments. And that's a huge one because I can just manage it. And again, I'm very unique because I've got 6 different classes. I don't have 6 sections of one. But a place where they could kind of all mirror together and be able to make those changes on the fly, right? And have them be able to turn in pretty seamlessly. That would be huge. So, and I've tried some different ones in the past and that's why I created my own because it just didn't really, it didn't work for me. And I'm not saying I love it, but it just works at this point in time. So something that would kind of hook those all together so that they would work good would be good. So, yeah.
Actually, if you have a couple of minutes, because I'm very curious about this, and you seem very organized with this. Could you give me a quick view of your lesson plan? Great.
You'll probably have to show me how to share it to you, but
I think you can just, if you're on your computer, you should be able to click the share screen at the
okay.
bottom
Yep.
of the Zoom, and I can just take a peek.
Okay. Yep. All right. Share screen.
And it usually asks you like which window you want to select, so you can just select like the browser or
Yeah.
the. Yeah.
Actually, let me ask my husband because he's on Zoom all the time. Hey, Mark. Hold on. How do I share my screen? All right, he's coming over here.
Yeah, it can be a little bit tricky sometimes. I feel like even I sometimes get a little confused.
The screen I want to show.
Yep. Good morning. Sorry to interrupt.
Oh, no worries. Thanks for helping.
Yeah.
Full screen escape.
So yeah, everything should pop up down here.
Oh, share screen. There it is. Okay.
And what do you want to share? The
That
whole
one.
thing?
Yep. Yep. There we go. They won't let us use Zoom at our school, but he has to use it for other stuff. So
Oh, okay.
yeah. There you go. So now you see it.
Oh,
So that was
great.
last week.
Mm-hmm.
So you can
Nice.
see I have my 6 different classes, and this is for a whole week. And
Mhm.
then like what we're going to do each day.
Okay, interesting. So this is so, and are these, some of these are, so do you have like multiple assignments? Like the students will only see one because like they just have that one assignment for the day or 2 days.
Right.
Looks like there's a 2-day project, but like
Right.
you probably have a few listed for you in your stream, right? Is that
So I have all these, and like the due dates aren't on them necessarily, but when I go to Google Classroom, it like they'll all be there. So chapter 13, the math sheet will be in Google Classroom, and it'll be listed there as an assignment with a due date.
Mhm. Okay, that's great. And are these are these the different weeks? Is the tabs at the bottom here?
The tabs are the different weeks. Yep.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Oh, that is very interesting. Great. It's a lot of classes.
Yeah, it is a lot of classes. Yep. You see my concern now. Yeah. Yep.
Absolutely. Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, that is super helpful. Thank you so much for sharing that. And
yeah, anything
yeah,
I can do to help.
yeah. And
Yeah.
thank you. I know that you're referred by Carrie, and she wants to thank you for being her son's business teacher.
No, he was great, and honestly, anytime I can help to because again, I'm a teacher now, but I was in business previously, so that's kind of where my experience comes from, and I'm always trying to. I always trying to help things, and I have a little bit different spin on education because I didn't start in education. So yeah.
Right. Makes
So,
sense.
yeah, definitely. Anytime if you have other questions, just shoot me an email, and yeah, I'd be glad to help.
All right. Sounds great. And I think we'll send you a Tango card. It's going to come via email.
Okay.
And it'll be coming from Tango. So
Okay.
just a heads up, keep an eye. Sometimes it gets caught in spam. So if you don't see it, it should come in the next like few days or so. And if you don't see it, you can always reach out. So.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you. All right. Well, have a great rest of your Monday and week.
Yeah, you too. Take care.
All right. Yep.